Okay, how are y'all doing today, folks? I'm doing well. I have said this story and told the story to friends of mine, and I've posted about it a little bit on Facebook, but I want to say this story, now that I have a video platform, I want to tell the story now. This is the story of Uncle Gil. Uncle Gil is the uncle of my father-in-law. He was a pilot in the Navy during World War II. He was stationed at Pearl Harbor, and he was there with his wife, Geraldine, or Jerry, and they were living there at Pearl Harbor at the time of the attack. And they were headed to breakfast on that morning. And, if you aren't aware or can't remember, the attack happened at 7:48 a.m. on December 7th, 1941. As they were traveling to the diner that they were going to have breakfast at, that's when they saw the planes flying in, the Japanese planes flying in and attacking everything. Gil was able to flag down a Jeep or a truck, and he was able to get taken to his base of operations. I don't know if he was actually at Pearl Station or one of the many, there was, at that time, you had the naval base, and you had like Army airfield, you had the Army barracks, you had a Marine barracks, you had the Army Air Corps airfields, lots of different things. Like I said, Gil's name was Gilbert Gilmore, and he had been married with Jerry, I think, a couple years by that time. And he made sure that Jerry was safe, and he headed back to the base, towards his workstation that he was at. And they're sitting there finding out, as he's going along, he's seeing all the damage that happened. And then he later told Jerry, hey, you remember those apartments that we looked at living at before? Well, they got flattened by the attack. So, he had a little bit of humor at a very tense moment, but yeah, he was able to do that. And so, like I said, the attack happened, and lots of things going on. You'd sit there, you don't realize how long it was. And you see the Michael Bay movie, and there's jokes that it was longer. The attack was longer in the movie than it was in the real life, but it was kind of long. Like I was saying, the attack happened at 7:48, and by 9 o'clock, it was over with. There was two waves of planes that flew in and attacked. They destroyed they sank four battleships, sank four battleships, heavily damaged four more. They destroyed over 188 airplanes, damaged 159, some total of civilians and military personnel. It was 2,403 people died in the attack. 63 of them were civilians. The rest of them were military personnel. It was a pretty horrific attack. And what was on the minds of the higher-ups there in Pearl Harbor is this just the attack, or are they getting ready for an invasion fleet to come in? This is where Gil kind of gets brought in, because like I said, he's brought to the base headquarters, or the offices, and he is a pilot, and he's one of the few pilots that are okay. But one of the things he does is he flies reconnaissance planes. So they ask him to fly. They ask him, and among other pilots, to go out and fly reconnaissance missions. And it looks like Gil is one of like 14 pilots that they have go out and come back. Because, like I said, at this time, they didn't have radar. They didn't have satellite imaging. This is 1941. This is 84 years ago. The only radar in Hawaii was on top of a mountain, and that's how they saw. And they didn't realize that they saw the planes coming in for the Japanese attack, because they couldn't tell. They first thought it was some planes coming in from San Francisco that were coming in for the Army Air Corps base. So they asked the pilots to go out, fly in all the directions away from Pearl Harbor and Hawaii as far as their fuel can take them, and bring them back. I don't know what the the level of their fuel economy was on these planes, of how far they could go. If they could go 200 miles or if they could go 300 miles, and they have to turn around and come back. But they had to go out, look for more ships coming in that from the forces that attacked them. They did this until the rest of the U.S. forces come in and reinforce the islands and provide relief and restocks and more soldiers to help out. Because, like I said, they didn't know what was going on. They didn't know if it was going to be a Japanese invasion force or if there was going to be anything else or another round of attacks. They needed to know. And like I said, there was something like there was 4 battleships sunk and several boats destroyed, several other boats destroyed, several many boats damaged, and it was in total disarray. But it was one of those things. That's what happened, is these men flew out there in unarmed reconnaissance planes. I mean, they were able to get eventually got some planes fixed that had machine guns on them. But for the most part, the planes that they had go out there, it was just up there with they might have like a slingshot or maybe a pistol or something like that. But that was it. They were going up there with a hope and a prayer. And, but they did their job. And they, and went out there, looked, came back. So that's something to think about. I mean, like we take for granted what we have now with like I said, satellite imagery and radar and cell phones and all that. But these people these men went out there and did their jobs and didn't complain. But they also knew, because they had their family. Gil had his wife, Jerry, and he had to think about her making sure that she was safe. And then after that, afterwards, Gil became he was assigned as a flight instructor, and he spent the rest of the war either teaching pilots in Pensacola or in Washington State how to fly Navy planes. So he did his job, and hopefully he did it well. Matter of fact, he actually had a full career with the Navy. He served, he did his job, and he made it up to commander. And so, good on him. Thank you, Gil. We appreciate your service.